Hello everyone and welcome to the blue section of the spoilers. So we begin with adverse conditions. It's a 4-mana instant that is frost breath plus you get an Eldrazi Scion. So this card is pretty good because it's not exactly removal, it's a disruption spell, but you get also a 1/1 that you can use for mana later on. So it's like a pseudo ramp with this card. So frost effects are always good if they are decently costed. This is decently costed and it gives you a 1/1, so pretty good for limited. Moving on, we have a reprint, Anticipate, from Dragons of Tarkir. I guess this is an okay card if you want to fight some specific card to use. You don't want to have too many of these because in sealed or limited you usually want to get your creatures out under downcast spells like this. So it's a decent card, don't go too crazy about it. Try to fill your queue with creatures because it's important. Moving on, we have Benthic Infiltrator. I already went over this card in my previous video. So it's a 3-mana, 1/4 colorless, also because devoid, ingest, and can't block. The can't block also is huge here because, okay, let's start viewing this card. So it's a 1/4, so it blocks well. It's unblockable, so you can trigger the ingest anytime you want, unless your opponent kills it. And you can keep it and offers a defense however you like, so it's a pretty powerful card for limited. And not a bomb, but a pretty decent common creature. So moving on, go to Brilliant Spectrum. 4-mana sorcery, converts draw X card, where X is the number of colossal mana you spend to cast it, and then you discard 2 cards. This is really bad actually, because even if you do it at 3 mana, you're drawing 3 different colossal mana. You're drawing 3 cards and then you discard it, so you're only going to do 1. It's like a worst divination. You need to do it at 4 to really get huge value, and then you're not really getting huge value. It's like a worse inspiration. So I don't think this card is actually good. No. If he said discard 1 card, it would be good, but now like this it's bad. Moving on, we have Cloud Manta, 4-mana 3/2 flyer. It's fine. Usually pay 4 to 5 mana to get 3/3 or a 3/2 flyer, so this card is fine. Flyers are always decently limited. That's pretty much about it. Let's move to the next one. We have Gluts of Currents. 1 mana for unsummon, or you get to do it with 5 to get a 3/3. Sorcery speed and summon is slightly weaker than a summon even with the awakening. That being said, if you do with the awakening, it's pretty good. It's like you play a 3/3 that unsummons a creature, so it's an okay removal. You don't want too many of these, but it's a decent card. It's not a bad card. Moving on, we have Coastal Discovery. 4 mana to draw 2 cards. It has an awaken of 6 to get a 4/4. Actually, it's a worse inspiration, but if you do the awakening, you pretty much play the 4/4 that draws you for 6 mana, that draws you 2 cards, which is pretty good. So this card is actually much better than the one we saw before, Brilliant Spectrum. Much better. It's not super pommy or anything, but it's a good card to have. So let's move to the next. We have Korrahem Guide, 2 mana 2/1, so it's already decent sized for a blue bear, because blue rarely gets 2/2s, they always get 2/1s. He's a Merfolk and an ally. We're not going to discuss the Merfolk card. This card sucks in Merfolk. It's really meant for the ally part, so you can trigger your allies. And for 5 mana, it becomes unblockable. It's decent because it's a 2 mana, so you can fill your care. The other ability is just a slight bonus that you can use to push in a case there is a port storm. That's pretty much it. Let's move to the next one. We have Cryptic Cruiser. 4 mana 3/3 devoid, and for 2 and 1 blue, you get to put a card in opponent owns, you get to process a card to tap a creature. So this card, it's a heal giant, so that's already an upside, it's an okay card. You get a slight upside, but just tapping a creature, I guess you can use him in conjunction with Battle Infiltrator, so you can attack its turn and keep a creature down for 1 combat. And if you can't do Battle Infiltrator, you can do it 2 times. That being said, you need to spend a lot of mana to do this. So it's an okay card, it's not super bomby or anything, but it's pretty good. Especially if you have easy ways to get ingest. Then we have Dumbending Pulse. 4 mana enchantment, creatures your opponent controls get -1, -0. So Jace's second ability, obviously mean Jace's Grand Architect, not Living Impact or anything. So is it worth 4 mana to half sliver your opponent's creatures? Not that much, and I guess I can see this as a sideboard card for limited if you are facing against an opponent that has lots of token generators. But other than that, it's not really that good. I wouldn't run my main board in a limited deck. Unless I'm super controlled, it just seems weak. So moving on, we have Dispel, final reprint. It's always kind of bad in limited because it's dominated by creatures. That being said, if you see your opponent having a lot of instants, board it in. Other than that, not worth considering. It's obviously good for standard, and the other formats is in, it's already pretty decent. This is plenty modern play in Grixis decks. So we'll have Droner of Hope. 6 mana 5/5 devoid. So when he enters the battlefield, you put 2 1/1s into play, and by sacrificing 1, you get to tap a creature. He's very strong. 6 mana 5/5 is already decent. You actually get a 6 mana 7/7 that you can either use to get mana or to tap creatures. So even when you have used up your science, he's still a 5/5. Very strong and limited, that's pretty much about it. Not worth considering anyone else. And we have Eldrazi's Sky Spawner. So it's a 3 mana 2/1 devoid flying that he puts a 1/1 in. So he's pretty much a 3 mana 3 to fly with 3/2 guy. So it's very good because he's half an Azure Drake that gives you 1/1. So it's actually better than an Azure Drake. Insane card limited. It's also a common. Early flyers are always good. The fact that he has an upside is even more good. That's pretty much about it. It's a limited card, obviously. Moving into the next one, we have Exert Influence. 5 mana, converts gain control of target creature if its power is less than or equal to the numbers you spend to cast this. So, in limited, you get to steal up to a 3/3 for 5 mana, but it's a perma steal. So I can see this being good, I guess, if you can pull 3 colors consistently. In constructed, I just don't see it. Why would you run the 5 mana that steals permanently? Even if you spend all 5 colors, I don't think it's worth it. But we could be surprised by a card like this. Permanent steal effects sometimes have their unique spot. Yeah, I'm not super impressed though, so let's move it to Guardian of Tazim, which is a 5 mana 4/5 flyer, already insanely strong and limited. And landfall, you get to tap a creature, and if it's an island, you get to freeze it. So he's very strong, actually probably one of the strongest ones in limited, I think. Yeah, because he's very decently costed and has very good stats. And if you get to freeze us for a land, it's actually very good. It's insanely limited, and that's pretty much about it. I cannot see this in a control deck, no matter how hard I look at it. We're going to have Halimar Tidecaller, 3 mana 2/3. When he enters the battlefield, you may return a card with Awaken from your graveyard to your hand. So this is an Awaken Symmetry card, which is obviously pretty strong, because Awakening cards are mostly removal spells. So get back a removal spell pretty much. And land creatures you control have flying. What a peculiar card. This is decent size, 3 mana, 2/3. This is a grey aggro. That being said, if you manage to pull enough Awakening cards, it's becoming stably strong. This is okay. I don't think so we impact much things in limited, just because you would have like much 2 lands awakened, and you would have already played here pretty much. Seasonalize triggers rally, so there is that, but other than that, I just don't see it. Next we have Horribly Awry, the LLR spoiler, which is probably the best art for the set. So it's Essence Scatter or Remove Soul that is limited, but it also exiles the creature, so it helps you trigger your processor later on. And limited counter spells are always kind of meh. It's like your 22nd to the 3rd card or something. In constructed, actually this could be pretty good, because conditional counter spells sometimes see play. Otherwise it will be certainly a sideboard card against mid-range or aggro decks. We're going to have Incubator Drone, one of the first cards spoiled. 4 mana 2/3 that gives you a 1/1. So it's a 4 mana 3/4. It's insanely good. For limited, the upside is just too high. You pick it, it's a pretty powerful creature. That's about it. There's nothing more to see here, so let's go to Mist Intruder, which is the replacement of Stormcrow. What have you done, Wizards? Stormcrow was too powerful, now you print this. So all in all, it's a decent sized flyer that has also Ingest, which is what I'll be telling you this time. So if you can pull it just consistently, all the processor cards are insane, like the next one, Mark Strider. So you have Mist Intruders and Bathing Infiltrators. This guy is insane because it's a better Zephyr's White Mage. If you can't pull it off, then he's pretty mediocre. He's like a horse hill giant, but definitely can't consider because of summon effects on the processing unit is pretty strong. Moving on, we have Oracle of Dust, the Ceiling Eldrazi as we call it. So it's a 5 mana 3/5 devoid obviously, and with 2 mana you get to put a card, you get to process a card to loot. So draw a card then discard the card. 4 mana 3/5 is okay stats, it's not the best, it's okay. The loot effect's actually pretty strong, but do you really want to use your processor to do this? I guess sometimes, so it's actually a pretty okay card, limited. Moving on, we have Pat the Water Veil, Rip Magos again, 6 mana, you take an extra turn, you exile it, and you can do Awakening for 6 for 9 mana. So this is stronger limited obviously, because this is slower limited format. 6 mana, it's not that much. If you did for 9, just insane. You get to make a 6/6, then attack with it next turn, or to attack it 2 times if you did for 10 mana. And again, for constructed, we might see it's a possible finisher in some control decks, but we have to wait and see. Time walk effects are always weird. They try to make them work, but they don't. Moving on, we're going on to see Prism Array. 5 mana. He comes to counter with every different color mana you suspend it. You remove a counter to tap a creature, and for all the colors of mana, you can scry 3. This is just probably one of the worst rares in the set because it doesn't do anything. You need to have all 5 mana for it to work. The scry 3 for 5 mana is not big. The tap a creature is not good. And in limited you will get like 2 counters on it, and it's just even a worse tumble magnet, really. Wow, this is really terrible. No, let's move to the next one. Retreat to Coralhelm, the second of the retreat cycle. 3 mana on landfall, you either get to tap or untap a creature or scry 1. Both effects are relevant in different stages of the game. Scrying 1 is relevant when you are trying to look for something or you're really behind, and Tapper and Tap can help you make combat easier for you. So it's a pretty decent card. Like all the repeated cycles, they're average power level. And that being said, let's move into the next. We have Roll Mage's Trick. So 4 mana, instant, converts. Your creatures your opponent controls get -X/-1. Let us turn will extend the number of different cards you spend, and then you draw a card. So these cards are usually pretty bad. Even if it draws you a card, it's actually okay if you manage to do it for 3 or more mana. Other than that, it's a pretty mediocre card. Otherwise, you'd have really slow control deck and limited to have this like as one of your major cards. I don't see it. We're going to have Ruination Guide, 3 mana, 3/2, devoid ingest, and it buffs the attack of all other colorless creatures. So this guy is pretty decent. It's a reverse Grey Ogre, which is better, and he pumps your Scions, which is really important because the 1 Scions really push for more damage, and he also pumps any other colorless creature you have. He's really strong, pretty important creature if you're running lots of Eldrazi, and that's pretty much it. Let's move it. Also has ingest, so processing easier. And we're going to have Rush of Ice, 1 mana to tap a creature, and it doesn't tap next turn, so it's sorcery. And you have an Awaken 3 for 5 mana. So you either do that for 1 mana or you get a 3/3 for 5 mana that taps a creature and doesn't tap. It's actually pretty decent, I guess. I mean, it's probably close or a little worse than Summon we saw before. Let's remind the Unsummon one. There we go. It's actually exactly the same cost, so it's a little bit worse because in the Unsummon your opponent has to wait a turn to replay it, but still it's pretty decent if you do it for the Awaken cost. Otherwise it's mediocre, really. And we're going to have to go to one of our 1-drops. So it's a 1 blue 1/1 ingest, so it's already okay. And when it dies, you get to draw a card and discard a card. Actually, even this 1 mana 1/1 was usually bad. The fact that it has ingest, so in the future it triggers your processors, because if you play first and you play this, your opponent is unlikely to pay 1-drop. It's actually pretty good. When it dies, it does something. So it's like a Palace Familiar. I guess it's pretty okay. It's not something we're going to have too many of, like 1 of maximum, but still it's a good way to push for early ingest. Then we go to Scatter the Winds, which is a pretty good counter spell. Actually, it's a cancel with a huge upside, so it's good early, it's good late, very good for standard, not chance to see any worse play. In limited, counter spells are usually kind of weak side of removal, but this also gives you creature, so it's pretty strong. That being said, I would rather pick harder removal spell or a bombing creature over this. Moving on, we have a spell Shrivel. So it's a 3 mana counter attack a spell and it's devoid. Counter attack a spell and its controller pays for colorless, and it exiles it. So actually this is pretty strong because it's like 1 more mana and 1 less cost for your opponent mana leak. And that being said, the fact that it's also exiles if it counters is pretty important, because you can use your processors later on to recycle and get value. For standard, I don't think we could see something like this, because it's just a mana leak of some sorts. That being said, if I guess the control deck, I guess could be good. I don't know. I have to wait and see for standard, but for limited it's okay, like all counter spells are, because it exiles, so it triggers your processors, and 4 mana is actually quite a lot for only 3 you spend. Moving on, we have Tide Drifter. So 2 mana devoid, other creatures you control get +0/+1. 0.5, so it's the best blocker ever. And it buffs the toughness of all your other creatures. 1-2 scions are a little less good than 2-1 scions. The other card is uncommon, it's a 3 mana. That being said, if you manage to care about on this and then the other guy that buffs power, you get a 1-6, which is not too shabby. So I guess this card is okay, limited. We don't want to have too much because pumping toughness is kind of weak sometimes, but the fact that it can block so well might be actually make it go over the top. So next we have Tightening Coil. So 2 mana, enchant creature gets -6 mana so and lose flying. So this is a lot of better than Pit to Earth, and it doesn't have the flavor fail, so this time it loses flying. And it's like a removal spell pretty much. Your opponent's creature can still block, but it's pretty much useless, so it's delayed removal, which is pretty good to always pick it. If you're in blue, you won't be disappointed by it, especially due to the fact that you have very powerful creatures now. -6, that's a big debuff. Moving on, we have Wiggins Insight. It's like Jace's Ingenuity, only you to scry first and you lost the instant speed. That being said, limited this amount of card draw, it's pretty good to push it to be good, unless you're already behind on board, so you don't want to play this. For standard, if you end up having a control deck with really big stuff, this is really good, otherwise it won't be good. So moving on, we have Ulamog's Reclaimer. So 5 mana to 5 devoid. When he ends the battlefield, you may process a card. If you do, return an instant social card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's like other cards with similar effects. This effect has been always okay if you could get like a decent card, but it's not too powerful in my opinion. So it's just an okay card because the body is really weak. Moving on, have Wavewing Elemental, 6 mana 3/4 flyer that in landfall it becomes a 5/6. So this card is actually very good because if you keep drawing lands, he is becoming huge, and huge flyers are always good. So I can see this being incredible actually in limited. Very strong card. As is the next one, Wing Rider Patrol, 5 mana 4/3 flyer, already pretty good. And whenever he deals combat damage, you scry too. So scrying over drawing a card is not really good, but still it's a decent sized flyer, and the scry 2 is relevant because you get to fix your draws or find something you're missing. And that's pretty much about the blue cards for Battle for Zendikar. Tune into the next video to see the black cards.